All right, looks like our players are in mulligans right now. Looking at Oldrich's hand, one power. I mean,
Th-
he's got a lot of one drops, a lot of ramp, but it also doesn't have time. What do you think he's looking for here, Nover?
so you're really looking for the Mother Zora, which you have in the hand with Questioning Devotee, but you want to give her charge in some way. So Battlefront Dasher, uh, Blitzstone, but you want to make sure that you also just have the three power. And right now, without time, you have these initiates, but they don't really do anything. This is definitely not a keep, for sure.
And then it is open deck list, correct?
It is open deck list, so
So,
uh,
what do you think Overmaster is kind of looking for here?
Theo is probably looking for ways to silence. So the 3 mana 1/1 that ETBs and silences an enemy unit is a good way to deal with the Questioning Devotee or Mother Zora. Mother Zora is kind of a linchpin to this deck. It's a general aggro deck, but if it's able to flip the Questioning Devotee, it becomes a 3/3 that gives all of your units deadly and +1/+1 this turn, which means that auto tread can become a Gatling gun, and all of the small tokens and like initiative sands become solid attackers that trade with anything that tries to block them.
Yeah, that's extremely potent. I do remember the, what was it, three drop, the 2/2 with charge that gave all attacking units deadly, and that thing was an absolute house. And Mother can essentially just stay back and have that same effect and even give them a buff, which is actually absolutely huge. So Oldrich being on the play, I think that's going to be a big proponent of this, right? Having the initiate to kind of ramp out the questioning was devotee on turn two would probably be pretty strong, though it wouldn't have charge as you mentioned.
It's
So
totally fine if it doesn't have charge if you can get it out early enough. It does have a summon that lets you bounce a unit to their hand, and that can get away a blocker. And if they only have the one blocker left, you can use something like Amri's Choice or a burn spell to get rid of that blocker and get in the damage with Questioning Devotee.
yeah, seems like a pretty strong keep here for Rich. It's kind of exactly what he wants to do, right? Get to play the initiate on one, ramp out the devotee on two, and then they have the uh, pump spell to make sure it gets in damage and survives combat. What do you
Yep.
think?
We just have to make sure that the uh, what is that card? The Diplomatic Seal will get a Justice. So leading on time into Diplomatic Seal for Justice to be able to play Omri's Choice on the third turn is quite solid.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see these quote unquote aggressive decks and then running three different factions because that's one of the things that typically slows down decks is how much influence they have to try to acquire. So it's always fun to watch because it's such a even balance between like just getting all the influence essentially. That being said, internal is a little more lenient on it.
So this is one of the decks that actually can perform that three colors more easily because it is the tri-pair or a tri faction pairing that has the double paintings, and paintings make aggro a lot easier to play as a power base because they are powers that come into play undepleted as long as they're being played on turn one or two.
Good draw here. Combray Banner is going to be able to be undepleted power and get the green as well. So things are looking pretty good at the moment for Old Rich. What do you think the Overmaster is going to try to do here?
So the Overmaster has a Devour, a Zito, and an Aramot's Machinations. The Machinations is pretty much a dead card for now. This Kindling Carver is pretty interesting, although having to pay for the Zito's debt means that they can't play any cards this turn, and this Devotee turns into a Mother Zora. So it seems like the Oldrich has the plan already going. So
Yeah, that
Theo is going to want to get back online with probably like a Grenadine Drone here into a Carver to play power for a turn off the top of his deck if they can draw it. And if not, they'll just play a power and probably play Zito as dead again. Unfortunately, that is a display of destruction that cannot be played due to power cost.
yep. Carver forcing you to play that card, impulse drawing, essentially having to play that card immediately. How much power does Old Rich want? Is he able to just kind of keep pitching power to this kind of discard outlet, or is there a critical mass he wants to achieve?
So Mother Zora and Beacon of War are the highest cost cards in their deck. wanting extra power just to exhaust units from Beacon of War is probably what you want to do, but you're more than welcome to discard cards to Zito or to auto tread and just like lose that power. You don't really need more than like 4 or 5.
And Overmaster here, kind of at a comfortable life total, decides to go ahead and take the damage, kind of keep the sack fodder for Carver, but Oldrich does take out the Carver with a smite, I believe. So it does silence it, right? So that makes Machinations less potent here. And we still can't play the destruction thanks to the debt. Debt really chart racking up here. And Oldrich goes into red zone again. This is, I mean, Overmaster wants to play a longer game. Do you think he has the tools he needs to get there?
The Overmaster doesn't really have that 1, 2, 3 curve for Machination, so it's going to continue to be a little bit of a dead card. It's more of a game plan of just trying to stem the bleeding for the time being. Getting those Zitos back is pretty nice. You get to keep on blocking the 3 damage over and over again and buying yourself time. You really just want to draw into more units on the 2 and 3 curve. I think the Searing Strike was a good call on the Carver. It means that Theo doesn't have the ways to draw cards that the deck wants. And the idea behind that card, instead of like a Torch, is to also counter things like a Vine Grafter and stop them from hampering your aggro play.
And we see that Omri's Choice come in clutch here, saving the mother from a removal spell, which, I mean, that really puts Theo in an awkward spot. And both the power in his hand come into play depleted. So he's not even going to be able to fire off this Machinations. It looks like Oldrich is kind of running with the game.
Absolutely. It's also worth
top
noting,
decking, though.
Oldrich is top decking. It is kind of where you end up being in aggro decks like this, where you just empty your hand and the rest of it is whatever you can spew off the top of your deck. Notably, I don't think the Overmaster has any good targets for Machinations at all, even though he can get one. Oh, there we go. We've got the singular Grenadin drone left. I was thinking about how like the Carver was silenced, the Zito was silenced, and there wasn't like many targets. But here we can at least get in damage, another 4 damage right here. We don't have a relic, and the only relic that is played in this deck is the Beacon of War. So it's just going to be a 2/2 Tinker Unionist, not multiple. Oh, it's a 3/3. Oh, because of the Deadly, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the taunt should come into play here because it does mean that Mother can get in a safe attack, correct? Oh, but we do see the Rectifier off the top there for the Overmaster. How big of a play is this right now?
That's definitely going to save some time. It takes a ton off the clock for Oldrich because the Anthem is gone now. However, the taunt still exists, so the Overmaster is forced to block the 1/1 and get in a nice 4 damage, bringing them down to 8. There's a question of whether or not you want to play Gavel's Insight to get in some more damage here. Let's see if he takes that line. He doesn't. Okay, that seems reasonable. Being able to save the Gavel's Insight for that last bit of damage that they're going to chump for is pretty relevant. Ooh, there we go.
Ooh.
Okay, the Overmaster might be in the game now. We've got a 2-drop, so once we play this 2/1 with Deadly and Two-Face, we can trade for the 2/2 with taunts, and once that's dead, you get to Airmont's Machinations for the 1, 2, 3 curve, and that'll bring back a 3/3 with an extra 1/1, another Two-Face, and another Rectifier.
Yeah, that's going to be a really strong Machinations this time, and unfortunately, the card that got Warcried by that Taunter gets milled, as well as a charging. I forgot what they're called now, but
Charge Grafter, Speed Grafter.
Crafter, thank you. Yes. So I think now you have to fire off the Insight, correct, to try and get that damage in instead of letting it remove your creature and avoid damage altogether.
It's really just 1 extra damage, so it's going to be the difference between 4 and 7 here. So it's not a lethal Gavel's Insight. If we're foreseeing a Airmont's Machinations next turn, I would rather save the Gavel's Insight so that it doesn't get blocked. Like you're gonna have some more blockers coming up anyway, right? Like just being able to get through the damage next turn is probably more relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
or even against a creature or a unit where it won't die anyways, right?
Right.
All right, this is gonna be close. I mean, they do get to machinations here, and they have Carver to go a little bit deeper, though they're not going
But
to have the power to do both things to huge success. All right, well,
right.
they're going to draw first. That makes sense. And I'm
Oh, that's a good draw with that Carver because you get to play the Carver, sacrifice the 1/1 from the Grenadine drone, and just kind of get back in this game. Like I think this is a solid stabilization from the Overmaster.
what kind of reach is Oldrich playing with that he's kind of looking for here?
Let me look at the deck list. I think the Beacon of War is probably the best bet. Also, a nice speed grafter, putting away this power burst for maybe a Grumbo's platoon. Oh, that power drop is not going to get there though. This is a stabilization at 2.
Yep. This is, yeah, it looks Blitzstone doesn't go face. Uh, they have 4 searing strikes. No, but that doesn't go face either, right? Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, this is gonna be rough. In the market, they have Cloud Scraper, Unmake, Grumbo's Platoon, Infinite Hourglass, Behold the Truth.
So
But I
it's
think they're
worth
kind of,
noting that like the auto tread could kind of get there if you can get Theo to get rid of the rectifier early, because the auto tread will be able to ping 1 twice over the course of the turns.
yes, sir. Oh, gaining a life
Unfortunately,
there, going up to 3. That's really actually crucial. And oh man, a bit of a flood here from Oldrich, unfortunately. So you think I mean, there's just no good attacks here, right? He's really just waiting off the top of his deck.
that's true. I don't think there's any draw that can really get Oldrich out of it at this point. It was a really tight game. If instead of playing the Searing Strike, it was a torch, then there would be the out of drawing the torch off the top and just burning the face. But the concession towards trying to kill Vine Grafters and continue the aggro curve has kind of put him in a spot where he can't use it.
Yeah, and unfortunately here, Oldrich is going to be drawing 1 card a turn, while Theo has the chance of drawing up to 3 cards per turn if they choose to. And here's a removal spell off the top that they have to use this turn, which, I mean, I kind of feel like this may get to the point where it's starting to close out the game for Theo. What do you think?
Yeah, the Grizzly contest can sacrifice. Well, I was gonna say sacrifice the O1. Ooh, another Two-Face. Yeah. The unfortunate thing is the game is far from over because the Overmaster can't really make great attacks to try to whittle down the life total because Oldrich plays so many charge units that if any number math is wrong, like if you're not playing around a charge unit plus an Ombre Choice or a Devil's Insight, you could just lose the game on the spot. So
Do you
while,
think
good.
do you think holding on to the Omri's choice there or the Gavel's insight there would have made a difference here instead of using it when he did?
This is the thought process that I had. Like I was foreseeing that it might have mattered more in a scenario like this, but also if we think about it, they would be at 5 instead of or would they be at like 6 or 7, I think, if we hadn't used the Gavel's Insight when we did. So it wouldn't be 3, it would actually just be a lot more life to try to work with the
Yeah,
Gavel's Insight in hand.
I think now we're really just starting to see the power of just all these 2-for-1s, right? All these
Right.
bodies that kind of leave another body on the battlefield is really starting to add up here, where the incremental advantage is slowly but surely starting to pull ahead.
So what we are actually looking at the top deck now, given how little the Overmaster's board has been dwindled down to because of the Carvers, is we're looking for a Beacon of War. Even if the Overmaster can land on a Nahid's Faithful, Beacon of War can expend all of their blockers and make it so that you are not losing your not having the opponent gain their life, so that you can get through the damage. You can win through that. I believe we just need to draw the Beacon of War this turn, because once that Nahid's Faithful can attack, the race is a little bit different.
Yeah, unfortunately. Oh man, that's the one thing about aggro. Sometimes your top decks later in the game just feel absolutely miserable.
So Grenadine Drone isn't the worst here, because even with Beacon of War, it is 4 to offset the 4 gained from the Nahid's Faithful. So it's still just a matter of top decking that Beacon of War. That, however, is going to change the math a little bit, because that makes Beacon of War not a kill.
Yeah, now Overmaster with 10 power, a full grip almost, it feels like. Going in for 7. I just don't think you can block here. And sure enough, Oldrich doesn't. He takes the 7, and we see Theo pop back up to 7. Another Silencer Rectifier coming down. Silence not too important, but I mean, now we're starting to see blocks are back up again. There's the auto tread. Do you think Oldrich can pull off a combination of something here?
Okay, so unfortunately, you can't even auto tread here because you don't have the extra card in hand. So what we're looking for is the Overmaster not to have Zito, and then to, I don't even know, I guess like we're auto treading trying to kill the Carver and just stop them from gaining so much life. It was a little bit dangerous to use this auto tread here and not to hold it for the next card, because this means that they can Carver away the rectifier on board to silence the auto tread. But I guess that's the reason as well. You don't want to have the auto tread stuck in hand when a Zito can come back into play.
Yep, and we see another machinations and the atrocious fine grafter in hand here. It really looks like Theo's engine is firing off on all cylinders now, and every turn just digs the hole deeper and deeper for Oldrich.
Yeah, the writing is on the wall at this point. Even a Beacon of War won't necessarily save Oldrich.
Yeah, we're gonna see a minimum another attack for 4. That's gonna be, potentially an 8-point life swing, and I mean Theo's board is practically full at this point. Just
It's
unfortunate that those 2 or 3 turns where Oldrich drew power, he really needed to draw some action there, and that was the window that Theo needed to start to pull ahead. Um,
We also have to note how much power Oldrich has drawn. Not only does Oldrich have 6 power in play, but how many power has Oldrich discarded off of these Zetos? This was kind of an anemic draw from this deck. We had
yeah,
just the one.
yeah, it looks like they're running 25 power on the dot. So game one's gonna go to the Overmaster, and it's tough break, but that's the way it goes, right? Overmaster looking for the game to go long and kind of get that incremental value. Overwatch trying to end the game as quickly as possible, and we ended up seeing just that happen, right?
Absolutely.
Deployed their game plan. They got Theo down to a low life total, but just didn't have enough to close out the game before those machinations. It was really that machinations, the second one is what really started to turn the game around when you're able to get 3+ units from the graveyard with all ETB effects doing some action, and
Yeah.
that's where Theo was able to turn the corner. What do you think they're looking for going forward from here, Nover?
So Oldrich definitely wants less power, more units, because Oldrich was able to get Theo down to 2 life off of just what, like 1 Initiate, 1 Mother's Aura, and 1 other unit for the early game.
Yes, yeah,
Even though Theo had a very anemic draw as well, only having the few 1-drops and then Emirates Machinations, that the first one was a 6 mana play a Grenadin drone. That was
mhm.
not where you want to be with Emirates Machinations, but it's what you have to do to stem the bleeding. So
The one inter-
go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
You're fine.
The one interesting thing there too is that Theo was able to fire off 2 display destructions, right? And so even though the first one didn't kill the mother, it still did gain him 3 life. And then the second one did end up killing the mother. And or no, he silenced it. What would the second one? The second one went somewhere, but essentially giving him another 6 life, which was, he gained more life subsequently after that, with power and whatnot. But I mean, he did. Yeah, he probably gained, I think, about 3, 4 life off of power, then another 6 off of the displays. So I mean, there's some resilience built into the deck for sure.
Absolutely. The display of destruction has 2 good modes in this deck, and an interesting third. The first one is that it actually creates 3 tokens in order to make Kindling Carver and Devour sack outlets, just so that you can have more fodder for the sack outlets. However, another thing that we haven't really talked about Theo's deck, and we didn't see it at all, is that this new version of FTS Sac is playing Red the High Roller, also known as Homesick Yeti, and that is a 3-cost 1/1 that when you play the 5th card in your turn, which includes power and stuff like Grenadindron and Machinations, you flip into Red High Roller, and Red will play the top card of your deck every turn and give you power equal to its cost. So the cool thing about that is that when you play a Display of Destruction, you actually get to play your 4 out of the 5 cards for red because it is playing the display and then the 3 cultists. And then just a power drop for a turn, or playing the red as like your like 6 mana, like you play destruction, you play the red, it'll flip it off of just those 2 cards.
Yeah, that is absolutely insane. Of note as well, Theo's also running a Marsh Dragon in the market, which, as we saw in that game, he can fill up the graveyard very quickly. So starting off in game 2, Rich is on the play and starts off with an auto tread and undepleted power. He's going to have all 3 colors next turn, but still at 2 power with a hand, and he has the beacon in hand now moving forward. But we do see
Ooh,
two
we got a power.
Two-Faces. We do see two Two-Faces in the Overmaster's hand. So how do you think this is going to play out right now? I mean, is he
So
just going to activate auto tread to kill those guys?
I believe Theo might. This is an interesting. I think this is a little bit of a greedier line with Speedcrafter because they're trying to play Diplo Seal for a Beacon of War and then draw that 4th power to get 2 Unionists. There's also that consideration of playing Unionists on 2 so that Theo is less comfortable playing cards like a Kindling Carver or Granite Enjoiner, like things that would die because of the taunt, right? Because taunt makes the opponent have to block something. We were able to pick up this Beacon of War, but we are going to discard an Gavel's Insight to kill this Two-Face.
Yep, so he's going to get in there. Two-Face probably going to chump block. It doesn't. Okay, so he wants to activate, I guess, activate Carver. Yeah.
Or Carver, yeah, sorry. And so, this is just a free 2/2 as part of that turn. And the next turn we probably play Beacon of War and hope to draw that 4th power.
Yeah, so essentially he's still getting 2 cards worth of value off of that Two-Face, man. This deck definitely has some sweet synergy. We see a 0-cost Carver most likely come down. I don't see why not.
Always nice to see, and they still haven't played their power for turn. So that means that we can see a Carver and a Two-Face come down, potentially.
Do you activate this Carver here or no? Never mind.
Ooh, activating on the other Carver. Okay, we're still trying to look for that other power. Ooh.
Oh my goodness, what a top deck there. So they get to play it at no cost, essentially. You know, they don't lose anything here. They still have another power, and like it's got that that protection on it, which is frustrating for the aggro list. So they could activate auto tread to ping it and then swing and let the taunt take it out, but I don't know. Do you just play beacon here, or do you activate your grafter?
Oh, so the grafter doesn't have access to regen thanks to the auto tread. I think you just want to get in damage here. You play the banner, you play the beacon, exhaust the vine grafter, and swing in for 9, bringing them to 10. And then next turn, the Unionist can be played as a 2/2/2s. I think that's where you want to be. I don't necessarily think that we need to go grafter this turn. If we do want to grafter next turn, we can grafter for the +1/+1 on overwhelm to the whole board, and I think that will seal away the game.
Yeah, despite the insane turn that Theo had last turn, he is still only at 4 power this turn. It just felt like a lot more last turn. There's the Display of Destruction, though, which was a key card in game 1. Shields are down right now, right? Oldrich is tapped out, so yeah, we see the Display of Destruction taking out the auto tread, just seeing the power level of auto tread here, even with 1 card in hand, even though it's synergized very well with the Unleash. So, I mean, it did take up Theo's entire turn here, right?
It did. So now we have a Battlefront Dasher. Oh, so what we can do here, that's probably fine too, is just play the double Tinker.
Well, it just sets them, it sets them up for a solid next turn, right? They're going to get in for 3. They're going to get the grafter out of the way before they're able to hit the market, and then they still have a charging unit next turn.
Absolutely.
They aren't going to be able to activate to do both.
Well, so if we see a power, no, we can't do the power plus do the graft plus playing the card out of the graft. So I guess it's still probably along the lines of hoping to graft into getting the Anthem, because then we'll be at 3/4s, all with Overwhelm, and they have 2 HP as blockers, which will be an exact 10 lethal, assuming that they do not activate this Carver.
Man, solid mill from those two faces, just always grabbing the Warcry units from Oldrich. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to play a Warcry unit yet. Then obviously taking Devotee, that would have been a nice bounce to get a blocker out of the way as well. So we'll have to see what's going on. I mean, it's always a shame, right? That's one of the ways these aggro decks kind of stay big is by getting those Warcry triggers. But hey, there's a silence. We saw that be crucial. This strike being crucial in game one, and they're going to immediately fire it off, taking out the Two-Face, which is going to prevent the blocker and the deadly, and they're just going to get in there. This is looking much better than game one. What do you think, Noberg?
Absolutely. This is playing around a Devour, I would assume. Because if they had the block, then Devour, they'd be alive at like 1 or 2 life and be able to try to get back with this Aramut's Machinations next turn. But as it stands, that's a nice 1-1. Oldrich bringing it back to a game 3.
Yep, and we saw the game plan go off there, right? Oldrich was able to deploy unit after unit, get in there. They had the taunt, so they could continue to push damage in. And I mean, we did see Theo have a fantastic turn 3, right?
Yeah,
where he just kind of went off.
Played like 4 cards, right? Like Carver reducing the cost of the card they draw is super helpful.
Yeah, it was crazy because they actually even played Two-Face, which was great. Like we said, it's 2 bodies. It has deadly, so it's going to guarantee to take something out unless they have the Searing Spear. All the pump cells, they may get the damage through, but they're still going to use the unit. So it was kind of what they wanted to do, but we're going to hop right back into game 3 here. Oldrich on the play again. Not great for Theo, but Oldrich loves to see it. What do you think of this hand?
This hand is quite solid. It allows you to play Auto Tread on 1 into Power Cell on 2, and then you can market away the Power Burst from the Power Cell. It has access to 2 ways to deal with Vine Grafter between Auto Tread and Searing Strike if they have a way to remove the Auto Tread. I think this is a solid hand. It's no, like, Charge Mother or anything, but it is just, this is the backup of the deck, right? You get to just play this decent Praxis aggro deck where you're just splashing for Omri's Choice and Gavel's Insight and ways to push through damage. And then it has this Mother Zora plan as the backup.
Okay, Rich deciding to play Depleted Power on 1, holding the Vow for a little bit if they can. They're going to go ahead and get all 3 colors online on turn 2. And then let's see what they decide to deploy. They're going to go with the Power Cell. 2 Searing Strikes here for Rich now. What do you think? Are you just going to fire these off on the first things that he plays, or are you going to wait for key targets?
The key targets I'm waiting for are Vine Grafter, like we're seeing here, and a Candling Carver. I wouldn't worry too much about any of the targets in the deck, as they are largely replaceable as just sack fodder. Being able to get this kill here means that we get to see an Auto Tread come into play, and a Speed Grafter, and attacking for 5.
Okay, now Theo does have undepleted power, and they have the Display of Destruction. They also have the ability to play Carver as well. What are they looking to do here?
So there's a lot of options here. You can start going with a Display of Destruction to kill the Auto Tread, and that's a way to protect your Carver. The other option was to put the Grenadine Drone into play and start carving a way to draw into more answers. I think this is a reasonable line. Like, Theo is at 24. Taking another 5, potentially more if they play the Speed Grafter this turn, but I think this was super solid for Theo, just being able to protect the Carver that they're going to play now, so that the Auto Tread doesn't just Gatling gun it away. There you go. And then we're drawing a card, seeing more power, hopefully.
Yep. Pretty comfortable with their curve, having a good shot, and sure enough, they draw a free Zito, man. So once again, we're seeing a fantastic turn here from Theo, just being able to flood the board, getting a free card off of Oldrich, and wow, pitching the Grafter.
Oh, this turn is so good now. We have 2 Searing Strikes. We get to kill both the Carver and the Grafter and play the Power Burst to play the Grumbus Platoon as 2 more 3/2s with charge. Oh, so we're choosing to kill the blockers instead. Okay. So we're
Yeah,
opting for a more aggressive line.
yeah, it's a heck of a turn. It's definitely a heck of a turn. I definitely see the argument of going between the card draw versus the resilient blocker, but I mean, I guess now they're borderline top decking, but this is a lot. I mean, we're looking at what 3, 6, 9, 11 power on the board for Oldrich. Though, I mean, we see another Carver, we see a Devour, so there's a chump block plus draw and life gain. So there's a lot going on here. Theo is far from out of it. What are they looking to draw?
Oh, they're another power away from Machinations. I don't even think they have the 3-drop for their Machinations. So it's probably going to be something along the lines of another, I guess another display to just make more blockers, because display does count as 3 blockers. It will be depleted though. So they'll have to like end step it, and I don't think they have the time for that.
Ooh, interesting play
Probably some
here.
two
So,
faces. I think we want two
yeah.
faces or Nahid's Faithful like we drew, but we just sacrificed all of the things that Two Face wants to eat, so it'll just be a 2/2. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
All
All
these
right.
top decks.
You just got to trust the deck. Trust the deck. All right. This is going to be interesting. So let's see here. They have essentially they're
Ooh.
at 9 life. They have 2 blockers. Grafter does have charge, but nothing to grab out of the market right now with nothing else in hand. That was a really good draw for Theo.
Do you just like discard the Grafter to auto try to kill the 1/1? And then
So
they only have
then
1 blocker, so they block a 3, which puts them to 9. So they then
they'd
will
probably
take
still
7, go to 2.
they'd still probably block the auto tread, right?
Well, I've got to imagine that if you play the Speed Grafter, it's going to get blocked by the 4/4 anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting because so Oldrich, I don't think they've had a chance to identify. Oh, all right, all
so
right.
this is a way to get rid of the 4/4 by discarding the Speed Grafter to kill the now 4/1, which I
Yeah.
think is a solid line. It's more conservative, but Theo is at 6 and has very few ways to
Oh
come
my
out of this. But
gosh.
that is another Nahid's Faithful. That is quite a fantastic draw.
Yeah, and Oldrich had to sacrifice his grafter, which was one way to get additional card advantage right through the market. When we see them then draw power,
Yep.
which I mean Theo's got no real choice but to block. But this means that Theo's back up to 10. I mean, they're both top decking. We've already seen top decks favor the Overmaster, just majority of his cards being 2-for-1s automatically. The grafter that's on the board for Oldrich has already been expended. We see a power from Theo, so this is going to take him down to 5 minimum, depending on what Rich draws.
Meaning that now that Rich is going to hit the Overmaster for 5, bring him down to 5. Ooh, bring him down to 4.
Aggressive.
3.
Okay.
Okay. So
How do
this
you feel
actually,
about that?
so this puts Theo dead to a top deck Battlefront Dasher.
Or almost anything here. And so power is going to take out at least the deadly aspect of
Absolutely.
Two-Face. They are going to still be able to block 5, but it is going to
Wait,
take
no.
the...
You just, if Oldrich just pings face, that means both the attackers are lethal.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He saw that. You're right. And that's why I am... Yep. And that's why I am commentating and not playing. Good catch.
All right. Good game. That was a sweet match.
Yeah, that was really good, really fun. Definitely showed 2 different sides of the meta, right? We're seeing a more synergistic, more attrition based and valuation style deck with a deck that's just low to the ground, very low to the ground. Like you said, the most expensive cards in Oldrich's deck is 3 power and just the value. So it changes the top decks, but man, those games were a lot of fun. The back and I mean, we couldn't have shown a better feature match. It had everything we wanted, right? Both players had the upper hand at some point in the game. Both players were making very interesting plays, a lot of decisions, and very great deck building from both players there. Are these decks kind of... We know the SAC deck is definitely something we've seen in previous tournaments, but
the SAC deck is a known entity. FTS Sac top 8'd every single one of your tournaments. I think it has a total of 7 top 8s over the course of 4 tournaments. So
oh wow.
It has 1 win, I believe. I believe the Overmaster won with FTS Sac on your last tournament, I want to say.
Yep. So it's definitely something, if you are interested in getting in the format and you like synergistic views like that, a lot of decision making like you saw, because remember, the Carver does draw you a card and reduce its cost, but it is an impulse draw. So you have to be able to play that card that turn. I mean, we saw Theo just be absolutely fearless, man. And he good deck building, right? He was able with 3 power to just go off where it felt like he had 6, 7 power instead. So it was very impressive. But I mean, once again, going back to a 3-color aggro deck, and to be honest with you, I never felt like I saw Oldrich stumble. In fact, they had multiple lines of play despite being 3 colors and being very low to the ground. Uh, that was a fantastic play with the Searing Strike, being able to remove blockers, silence them, and remove them to avoid the recursion, and then still refresh that power to continue to develop to the board. Great synergy with the Tinker, being able to play multiples, going into the market to upgrade, right? All these unleash cards that we're able to play over and over and over again as long as you have power. We see that those units are absolutely incredible when you have the ability to modify them in any way, right? Direwolf kind of initially engineered them to, hey, they're going to be playing multiples of that, so let's keep that in mind and keep them to a fairly decent power level where they're already good if you play multiples, but any kind of modification like we saw there, giving them a +1/+1 and charge just was absolutely huge, making it to where you could add 6 power to the board, all coming in at you right away. So do you expect to see some more innovations from these mother decks going forward?
Mother decks were actually something that I toyed with the least. I think that deck was a variant that I made maybe 3 or 4 days ago.
Okay.
I think that Mother Zora has a lot to be toyed with. The original builds that I was playing around with was with Iceberg Scattershot and I think it's Calderon Gunsmith, the 5-mana 3/2 that when you summon, all of your units deal 1 damage. So I was going with this like weird like make Mother hit without actually having Mother attack. And then this list idea came from Spifferific with the idea of just like, what if we just gave her charge in a few different ways?